Let's go to New York and speak to the journalist Stephen Thrasher. Why has so little changed, do you think, in terms of community relations over the past 20-odd years?
Thank you for having me on your program. Structural racism has been happening in the United States of America since before our nation was a nation, and so things are not about to change very quickly in just a number of days or even a number of years. I grew up in Southern California near Los Angeles, and of course you have seen some changes over the decades since the events you were just describing in your last segment, but there are large historical and sociological trends that structure racism into the nature of the law, into the fabric of our country, and that's not going to disappear just in a short amount of time.
Well, is it, though, lack of opportunity or lack of motivation, as some recent studies would suggest?
I don't think it's either a lack of motivation. When you're black in America, you're set back many generations by things that have happened to your parents and also things that have happened to your grandparents, but things that are happening to you. So when you look at Ferguson itself, there's a great story out of the Washington Post, I believe it was posted yesterday or today, about how you can see that black people are incarcerated at much higher rates. They are, even when crimes are committed by both white and black people, the police come down much harder on black people. And that not only marginalizes them for the time of their incarceration or their encounter with law enforcement, it affects them for the rest of their life. I believe in Ferguson itself, you see that about 33% of African Americans, or in Missouri, about 33% of African Americans have had contact with law enforcement, and that not only keeps you from having jobs in law enforcement yourself, in which case it becomes impossible to diversify the police force because black people who have been incarcerated are not able to serve on the police force, but it also makes one unable to get any job. Once you're incarcerated, you're really unable to rejoin society economically or professionally for the rest of your life, even after you've paid your debt.
And I think the figures that I read recently, 40% of the prison population in America is black, and in the case of Ferguson, I think the police force is, what, 94% white against sort of a large,
yes, that's correct,
a large African-American population. But there is there's other research, isn't there, to suggest that blacks born after 1976 take a different view from this. There's one study I saw, which maybe you're familiar with, by Candice Watts-Smith for the London School of Economics. Racial disparity. Blacks say that there's a lack of motivation to pull themselves out of poverty rather than structural discrimination. That was her research. I mean, do you think it is changing a little now that younger blacks, people say in their 30s and 40s now, realise that they need to make a real effort, in fact more of an effort, given the structural changes and obstacles they've been up against?
I certainly wouldn't say that for my social or professional circles. I was born in 1977, so I'm right after that cutoff date that she's referring to. And we do have this mythology in America that in order to get by, in order to do things, you just have to pull yourself up from the bootstraps. I certainly have not sensed that from the many young people that I was talking to in Ferguson or from my own friends. For The Guardian, I spent last weekend in Ferguson, and I was trying to talk primarily to children to see how this was affecting them. I talked to a family of 5 boys, ages 3 years old to 16 years old, and it was amazing to hear even the 6-year-old say how afraid that he was of the police because they shoot people. That level of psychological and emotional impact that has on people affects the individual, but even when one is striving to get ahead and doing everything that they do to get ahead, they have no power over what the United States of America has done to their family historically.
We have about 10, 15 seconds left. A black president, could he, should he do more?
I would like to see President Obama go to Ferguson and put everything he has into doing what he can.
Stephen Thrasher, I'm sorry we're running out of time, but very good to have you on the programme. Thank you very much indeed.